half in the bag. Maybe that's a bad idea.
Hey, Mike. Did you know that the only company to still manufacture VCRs is going to halt production at the end of the month?
Oh my God, they were still making VCRs up until now?
I guess maybe it's time to finally close up shop. Hey, maybe it's not too late to fulfill my lifelong dream of becoming a lighthouse.
Jay, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm not talking about the lighthouse part. With no new VCRs being made, we're gonna be in business forever.
Yeah, you might be right. How else are people gonna be able to watch their copy of How to Have Fun with Billy Bob Teeth?
Or such classics as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles rock and roll documentary film.
Or the O.J. Simpson workout.
Or more importantly, Jay, how are people gonna play their Star Trek The Next Generation interactive VCR board game?
Oh my God, Mike, speaking of the Star Trek The Next Generation interactive VCR board game, have you seen the O.J. Simpson workout?
No, Jay, I have not seen the O.J. Simpson workout video.
Looks like nobody has. It hasn't even been cut open.
Unlike Nicole Brown Simpson.
Oh, murder jokes.
I killed it with that one.
My dad joined Starfleet because he believed in it. I joined on a dare.
You joined to see if you could live up to him.
It's now time for a third Star Trek film. This time directed by Justin Lin of the Fast and Furious films. The crew of the Enterprise is back. A bad guy wants revenge. A doomsday device is there. Mr. Scott wrote the script, and there is no dog in the film.
What? Is that a reference to anything?
It's not a reference to anything.
So, Mike, what did you think of The Beyond, directed by Lucio Fulci?
What does that mean?
Mike, what did you think of From Beyond, directed by Stuart Gordon?
A place beyond the pines?
Mike, what did you think of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
Starring Roger Ebert.
Starring Roger Ebert.
He didn't star in that film, he wrote it. Did you ever see Place Beyond the Pines?
I did not. I heard it was good.
Very good. Well, Jay, this movie was awesome. I have a feeling we're going to have differing opinions.
No, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was awesome. It's as someone that did not like either of the previous movies, I enjoyed this one.
Well, this is definitely the best of the three Star Trek films. It's the best Star Trek film since, and actually it's better than Star Trek Insurrection.
Is it even fair to call it a Star Trek movie, though, and compare it to those other ones?
Yes.
I mean, maybe this one more so than the other, but in general, I think at this point, we're past the point of people, if people want to complain, like, oh, these new Star Trek movies, they're not real Star Trek. Like, that's kind of moot at this point, because we've reached a point where it's its own thing.
No, it is, I would call this the closest thing to real Star Trek that I've seen. Since Star Trek essentially died after Data exploded. Oh, spoilers.
Spoilers for Insurrection. Which one is that?
Shinzon, that's Nemesis.
Nemesis.
After Tom Hardy's green electricity doomsday device killed Data. But the four next-gen films, Insurrection is the closest to a Star Trek film, and Beyond is closer to a Star Trek film with the wonderful touches of a great action and amazing set pieces and humor and fun. Watching this, I was like, bleh, because my mind was like, there are so many little references.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because that's what killed Into Darkness for me, was all the obvious ones that even a normie like me got, and it was really distracting. And this one, I didn't get any of them, and I just watched it as its own movie.
It wasn't hit you over the head reference, like, con, like Into Darkness was stupid.
Yes.
This is taking all those elements that worked and putting them into a wonderful blender and making some really great smoothie out of it.
Well, it's the first one.
It goes down easy.
Because the only thing I've liked in the previous ones is the cast and their interactions. I thought they all play off each other really well. And then the rest of the movies sucked. This one, they play off each other really well, and it's supported by a decent story. Even though it is another the bad guy wants revenge story, it's not obnoxious about it.
Well, that's the thing that surprised me. There are three things that would have normally annoyed me. Bad guy wants revenge, doomsday device, and inappropriate music in a Star Trek film. But for some reason, all three
We'll get into that later, I think, but yeah.
Worked perfectly.
Yeah.
I think the core, like the first act of this movie, it felt so Star Trek. It was like, you have this cute little opening that actually had a point, like
Unlike Into Darkness.
yeah, it wasn't like just we're going adventures and fight. It was like it brought everything back to the function of what Starfleet is and what the purpose of it is. Seek out new life, new civilizations. Starfleet is a giant, like everybody holds hands and tries to get along thing. It's a big United Nations of many different worlds that all, like, every world that's in Starfleet can become a protectorate of it. It's basically like a big universal United Nations, like I said. And so they have all these, the core beliefs, the prime directive, and sort of this ethos, like we're gonna work together towards a goal. We don't argue amongst each other. And that was the big thing with Roddenberry and Next Gen when Next Gen started. Have you watched that documentary by William Shatner?
No.
Where it's like...
Is it The Captains? That one?
No, not The Captains.
That's the Ego Project, right?
Yeah, where Shatner talks more than his interview subjects. No, it was about the origins of Next Gen and how it started off kind of rocky, and how when Gene Roddenberry was still alive, and he didn't want the characters on the show to like have interpersonal conflicts. Everyone in the future, in the 24th century, lives in a happy world where everyone gets along.
Yeah.
The conflicts come with problem solving and dealing with aliens and stuff like that.
Well, this is the first one of these new Star Trek movies to really set that up well.
Yeah, where there weren't. I mean, their Bones is cranky and cantankerous.
Sure,
and
they all have their characteristics, but it's about the overall worlds, people living together, but also these characters specifically working together.
Right.
In a way that they didn't really do well in the other two.
Yeah, you find everyone has their strengths and you use it to work as a team and all that kind of stuff. With Next Gen, the writers were like, we want all the characters not to get along and to argue and to, that's drama comes from conflict.
Sure.
How can we write scripts without drama? This found a wonderful balance of that old Star Trek philosophy and mixed in the action sequences and all the little Star Trek nuggets and the way that the characters acted. No one acted like these were the closest to the original cast.
I even like Kirk in this one, and I didn't really like Chris Pine in the other two.
Right.
There's a lovely little scene with him and Bones where they're just sharing a drink early on, and he talks about how I'm a year older than my father was when he died, and it actually makes you give a shit about Kirk for the first time in any of these movies.
Yeah, that's how Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan starts.
I was reminded of The Wrath of Khan.
And how Wrath of Khan ends. This one's closer to Wrath of Khan than the Wrath of Khan one was.
Without it feeling derivative.
I mean, To Absent Friends is the toast after Spock dies.
Absent friends.
They also echo that in Nemesis.
To absent friends.
To Absent Friends after Data's dead. And they do this at the end of this, but in, Star Trek II opens up. Kirk is an admiral.
What is it? For your eyes. For most patients your age, I generally administer Retinox 5.
I'm allergic to retinox.
Exactly. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bones gives him a birthday gift, a pair of spectacles. He used to wear spectacles to look at things. He's feeling old and kind of useless.
Wait, are you talking about Kirk or William Shatner?
I'm talking, well, Shatner is currently old and useless. He'll probably be dead before this review goes up.
Oh,
it's just gonna suddenly
no.
happen, Jay. James T. Kirk, played by William Shatner in Star
Yes.
Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. He's like, I'm old. And that movie had that underlying theme of, and so did Insurrection, where Insurrection was about an admiral who goes off the rails and wants to steal this radiation that's hitting this planet that makes you get youthful, makes you basically, it's a fountain of youth, essentially. But there's this little indigenous population of people that live on this planet, and it's against the Federation rules to kick them off their planet. And so Picard goes AWOL, and he's like, nope, we can't just steal these people's homes. It's against our rules. You know, it's against the Prime Directive. And I like stories like that. And this one was, my only downside to it was, guy wants revenge. He wanted revenge for a kind of a purpose. I think he was military nuts, and then also felt abandoned.
He felt a little underwritten, and it feels like they didn't give you too much information about him until like right before the end, and then they suddenly dumped this stuff on you.
Well,
there's a little bit early on, but you really, I mean, I appreciate that they kind of doled out the information, but it felt like, oh, we're approaching the ends, and then they just kind of dumped it all there.
I mean, there have been many Star Trek stories where former captains go crazy, do crazy things.
I would say it's serviceable because it's everything else in this movie that works aside from the villain that I thought was kind of underwritten.
Yeah.
And the villain, what was his name? Kroll? Was his name Kroll? Like the
Kroll with an O.
With an O.
Not Kroll like the movie Kroll.
Okay. I was very confused. They kept talking about that, and I thought they all just wanted to get together and watch the movie Kroll, starring Liam Neeson. It was very distracting. But yeah, that Kroll villain is played by Idris Elba, who's a very good actor. And here he just kind of grunts a lot.
I am counting on it.
Yeah, a little bit underused. Idris Elba was, of course, on The Office.
You know, Michael, I don't need to know everyone's sexual history.
Well,
Thanks.
perfect, because we have now arrived at Kevin and he has no sexual history.
Hey, how about I just say hi to everyone at one time?
That's right, he was. I forgot he was on
Several
that.
episodes directed by Paul Feig.
Oh, the director of the hit film Ghostbusters.
Yep.
You spent all this time trying to be your father. And now you're wondering just what it means to be you.
You didn't like Kirk. I didn't like Kirk in the previous two films because they're like, what's James T. Kirk like? Well, he's a womanizer because everyone knows him kissing the Green Lady. So let's make him this big, brash, I'm so awesome guy. And he really wasn't. Kirk was very like level-headed and smart.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like this like frat boy. And in
Well,
this,
they took all the characters and just sort of upped the most simplistic aspect
And
of
here
them, except
they
for
brought-
Spock, who they just made punch everybody and yell all the time.
yeah.
But not in this one.
Nope. No, Spock is more Spockish than ever in this one. He gets emotional, but Spock also got emotional in TOS.
Sure.
Spock's emotions overpower him, but only briefly.
Yeah.
Unless he has sniffed magical flowers on a hippie love planet.
This
And
Star
Kirk-
Trek shit sounds stupid.
And Kirk has to beat him with a pipe in order to bring him back.
All right, you mutinous, disloyal, computerized half-breed. We'll see about you deserting my ship.
Never mind, the Star Trek shit sounds great.
Yeah. That's a real episode. I gotta beat him in the head with this pipe.
He also gets emotional in this, though, in relation to the Leonard Nimoy Spock, which I thought was handled very well.
Yes.
It was handled mostly without any dialogue, which I liked. It was very understated and sweet.
Yeah, and the what felt like before the pointless romance between Spock and Uhura.
Oh, I loved that they kind of got rid of that almost immediately.
I think you should have this back. After all, it belonged to your mother.
It is not in the Vulcan custom to receive again that which was given as a gift.
Well, but they get rid of it early on. He's like, we broke up. The first scene, they talk about how they're breaking up or they just broke up or whatever. But it establishes this necklace that comes into play nicely later in the movie.
It was a nice, like, before it's like, okay, Spock Spock's Uhura's gotta do something.
Yeah.
Original series in the movies, Uhura, Chekhov, Sulu, and Scotty to a certain extent didn't really do anything. It was always the trifecta.
Right.
Chekhov did nothing. He's Chekhov, and Sulu.
They're just crew members.
They're crew members, but they have their character quirks. But like Uhura would always be like, I'm picking up whale sounds. Uhura, can you find out where the whale sounds are? You're the communications officer.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then in this one, like Uhura did stuff like that.
Yeah.
She didn't. It wasn't like every character has to be hypercharged and blah, blah. And so when Spock and Uhura had their relationship in the first one, I'm like, this feels so forced and stupid. And this one, it existed because it had in the previous films, and now it's like Spock is like feeling this compulsion to help propagate his species because they've been wiped out, and he feels like mating with a Vulcan woman and creating more Vulcans is a more logical thing to do. Mm-hmm. And so the conflict with that is so subtle, so well done, and so tasteful. And I think at the end when he looks at the picture of the original crew, a little bit of emotion takes over. This is where I belong.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the illogical route.
You guys break up? What'd you do?
A typically reductive inquiry, Doctor.
Spock, if an Earth girl says it's me, not you, it's definitely you.
Would you say that this felt like, I think I mentioned this in our Into Darkness review, where it's the opening of that movie felt like a random episode towards the end of the run of a TV show when everything feels kind of stale and forced. This whole movie, would you say it felt like a good episode of a Star Trek show? Because it felt smaller in scale, it felt more streamlined in a way that I liked. It wasn't bogged down with convoluted shit everywhere.
Yeah, no, other than it's hard to compare it to the TV series because the TV series lacked budget. And this one...
I mean from a story perspective, where it's like, they crash land on this planet and everybody's split up and they've got to get back together.
It felt like a very, very good Star Trek movie because, I don't know, there's lots of things in this that were kind of like pulled from the series. I mean, they did the Swarm in Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
It was sort of like the B story on the episode. There was the A story was like, I don't know, the Doctor doing something. I really can't remember, but the B story was there is a swarm of teeny tiny ships that are coming at us. And they were like, shoot the phasers into it. It's not really doing anything. Oh shit, here they come.
Yeah.
They're clamping onto the ship everywhere. It wasn't like as violent and over the top as it was in this one, but
sure.
They're coming on board. It was like a neat concept. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's a cool villain, the Swarm.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of tiny ships attacking you at once is an interesting concept, and the Voyager didn't do anything with it. I'm glad they brought that back.
I didn't know that was a pre-established thing.
Yeah, well, it's radically different from this.
Oh, sure.
He was so small, in comparison. But there's lots of little things, like Scotty references the giant green hand, the glowing green hand in space.
Oh, okay. I didn't see, as someone that didn't know that was a reference, it just works as kind of an amusing line.
Yeah.
A giant green hand.
There are lots of references. And I think Simon Pegg may have been making a reference to Tuvix. I don't know how much Simon Pegg knows about Star Trek. I know he's a big Star Wars guy. I have a feeling he watched every Star Trek show in order.
I'm going to assume he knows more than Robert Orci and Robert Kurtzman.
But they made a joke about McCoy and Spock being melded together once they beam back.
Oh yeah, that made me think of David Cronenberg's The Fly. Was that a Star Trek reference?
Well, yeah, and Scotty goes, that would be the worst thing that would happen. It was the worst idea ever, or something like that. And there was a Voyager episode where Neelix, the happy-go-lucky Hobbit character, and Tuvok, the emotionless Vulcan, get blended into a new being called Tuvix.
Oh my God.
And they're like, Tuvix is its own thing, we can't tell it to separate. He's like, I like myself now, I'm Tuvix. And they're like, we can't force it to come back apart. It's a new person. What do we do? I don't know. All those there's lots of ethical questions in Star Trek. That's what makes Star Trek fun, is all the ethical questions. So many good shows dealing with that. And then there's a lot of, dumb action episodes or whatever, but it's hard to do an ethics storyline in a big budget movie. This was like...
I thought they did what they could as far as all the characters, like Kirk is thinking about leaving Starfleet, and Spock is thinking about leaving Starfleet, and then their reasons for staying, and all that stuff it's in there. And I liked early on there wasn't a lot of action, so when it does happen, it's actually exciting because it's not like overload.
Right.
It got a little more excessive towards the end, a little bit, but not too bad.
They're flying around inside the...
And the whatever that, not planet, but
it was a space station.
Yeah, the space station, whatever that was called. Yorktown, something like that. Some of that stuff was like, but then they do something clever, like, because it's this weird planet-shaped thing where all the buildings are coming together. It's like an Escher painting or something. So there's all these different gravitational pulls, and they're using that to get from one point to the other.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, that's at least neat.
Yeah. Then you have lots of, I mean, someday, Jay, I'll go through this film with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay.
And point out all the references.
It isn't uncommon, you know. It's easy to get lost in the vastness of space. There's only yourself, your ship, your crew.
But the best and funnest part of the movie, I think, was the USS Franklin. They discover a crashed starship.
Do you think that was some sort of subtle nod on Simon Pegg's part to getting back to a simpler idea of Star Trek with this movie as a whole?
Oh, going back to an old ship?
Yeah, them kind of reviving an old ship.
Oh, maybe. Metaphorical,
yeah.
Sure. I just liked the fact that I thought that was it was a callback to Scott Bakula Enterprise.
Oh, really?
Well, it's basically the same design, like an X-class ship. And that was so cool to see that in this movie, and it was like the first, I think I don't know. Enterprise early on, it was like, we broke this barrier, the Warp 4 barrier, the Warp 5 barrier. And so that was a thing on that series, was like getting the ships to go faster and faster. So that was like era specifically correct,
Okay.
And so watching that ship fly around, like a nod to Enterprise, was also quite amazing.
We will find hope in the impossible.
Should we get into spoilers?
Yeah,
because there's another thing we got to talk about towards the end too. So, all right, spoilers. Well, we got to talk about the use of sabotage by the Beastie Boys.
Sabotage.
If someone had explained that to me before seeing the movie, I would have rolled my eyes because I think of the first two Star Trek movies and how lame they are. And it actually works in this movie.
Let's hope this doesn't get messy.
But it works in the context of, if it was just that song playing during an action scene, I'd be like, this is stupid. But the fact that it is a part of the scene where they're playing the song, it actually kind of worked and was fun in a way that I am surprised by.
And was well set up.
Yeah.
Because the downed ship is inhabited by our alien friend.
Jayla.
Jayla?
Yeah. Who I liked.
Yeah, that was a good character. And she discovers an archive of music and likes to play Public Enemy, Fight the Power. And then she goes, I like the beats and the yelling. And it's like, oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny, and it works. It's blended in properly, and it's not like, what was it, the other one, on the radio or something?
It was just, isn't that how the first one started, with little Kurt driving
the stolen sports car, and I think it's just playing on the radio.
It's just blaring, and it's like, this is how we're being introduced to Star Trek. This is weird. But in this movie, it's in a context, and when they bring it back later on, It's a clever way to defeat the swarm.
Yeah.
And it works. I can't believe that sequence worked. If you were to explain it to me, I would not. I would say that sounds like the worst thing ever. But it's fun.
Yeah.
The movie wins you over by that point.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
This is where the frontier pushes back.
What the hell is this?
I know why you're here. Why we are all here.
But I think the big key to everything is the trifecta, the Kirk, Spock, McCoy.
McCoy has stuff to do in this movie.
McCoy has
he's so swept to the side in the previous two.
Yeah, they knew what to do. Simon Pegg and somebody else co-wrote this. They did a great job dealing with the characters, mainly Kirk. Kirk was not like everyone has this like idea of Captain Kirk that's very inaccurate from what the show is.
Sure.
And they got it right. Kirk he's a good leader, and he's level-headed.
Yeah.
He's not the crazed, I'm going to take risks and jump and explode and do all this kind of stuff, even though he does ride around on a motorcycle.
That was the one thing I thought was kind of lame when they established that this old motorcycle is on the old ship. I was like, that's just an excuse to have him jump around later in the movie. I like the moment, it's not really a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but I like they're going to be transported as he's jumping off because he has to get to the Jayla girl, and it actually works. It's another thing that if, like in the trailer I saw it, I was like, that looks so lame. But in the context of this movie, it works pretty well.
Yeah, it's all set up too.
Yeah.
Her weird thing where she does the Superman 2 thing where jumping around everywhere, has some kind of like reflecting hologram technology, and then they use that later, and then the gaseous substance that turns into a crystal. Use that. Everything's set up, and I think the assignment was make a big budget action movie with big spectacular action scenes, but at the same time retain all the good qualities of the characters, have them scaled back to where they feel like the real characters, and have that underlayer of the Starfleet ethos or philosophy, and make it all work. And this was like the best example of that.
Why did it take him 3 movies to get it right?
Because Robert Orci and Alex Kurtzman wrote the other films.
Oh.
This film made me sort of emotional, which is surprising. Even though the surprising thing to me was it had all these elements in it that normally you'd think I would hate. I'm playing a Beastie Boys song during a Star Trek action sequence. Bad guy wants revenge, doomsday weapon. But like all that worked, the movie worked, and then you had like these kind of real life elements that were involved. The actual passing of Leonard Nimoy incorporated in the story.
Yeah.
Quinto showing the old cast photo from Star Trek VI, and then of course what happened with Anton Yelchin.
Which, I don't know if this was, I think the movie was completely done before he passed away, but there's when they do that toast at the end, and he says to, what does he say to the...
to absent friends.
To absent friends.
And he's in the shot.
The next, they cut from that close-up of him saying that immediately. Anton Yelchin is in the middle of the frame. I was like, oh my God.
After just watching that new Ghostbusters movie, like Harold Ramis having died, it was a couple of years ago now, but Leonard Nimoy, Spock, Egon, and it's like, and then it was bittersweet because this film made me feel like Star Trek was kind of like, it was like someone had shocked a corpse. You know what I mean? And then we're all just kind of sitting there, and then he said, beep. And it's like, it's alive. It can be alive. And it has to go through some PT, physical therapy. It has to have some work done. But it's kind of like alive again. And you have these big giants like characters passing, and what happened to Anton Yelchin is separate, but it's also sad, know. And then you have this new TV series, and running through my brain, I'm like, wow, yeah, we can have a new TV series, which is supposedly episodic in seasons, where it's like season 1 is going to be a story about this in this time period. It's not going to be like 7 seasons of one crew like traditional Star Trek. It's going to be closer to like American Horror Story, where this is going to be about this. Flash forward 200 years about this. Klingon.
Just things in this universe.
In the Star Trek
that's interesting,
universe.
and I liked the little touch in the captain's log at the beginning of this movie when Kirk's talking about we're in year 3 of our 5-year mission and things are starting to feel episodic.
Yes.
And I thought that was a nice little nod.
The little cute things like that in the dialogue, but and then I'm like, hey, all my TNG people are still with us. Like people have been remaking old stuff. They brought back, they're bringing back Twin Peaks. They're bringing back They brought back Arrested Development. They brought back Full House. I mean, for God's sakes, they can bring back. We can jump and see what's happened with the Next Generation crew. 20 years later, 98 was Nemesis. Captain Riker on the USS Titan with his wife Deanna Troi are doing some stuff. Picard's some kind of admiral. Where's Janeway at? Well, she's locked up in prison. When the last 2 films felt like I was walking into a grave. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It felt like
Star Trek isn't Star Trek anymore.
Star Trek isn't Star Trek anymore. It felt like the death throes. Like, oh God, here we go. And while this movie did have tons and tons of huge epic action set pieces, it was like bing, 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 like those 3 notes that open the Star Trek theme. It's like, there it is, I hear it. I hear it, it's still there, sort of. Simon Pegg brought it back from the dead, kind of, and it's kind of alive. And so it made me melancholy, bittersweet, but at the same time, hopeful.
Okay.
Hopeful.
See, obviously I'm not a Star Trek guy, so I didn't get those emotions out of it specifically, but I did feel like this movie had more of a heart than the other 2. And the connections, I know Star Trek through pop culture, basically, so the way they handled Leonard Nimoy or looking at the photo of the old crew, like, that worked for me as someone that just knows it as this pop culture thing. It had a heart in a way that the last 2 did not.
It's like Simon Pegg and whoever else wrote the script with him had to deconstruct what they had done with the first 2 films and go, let's start over.
We got to put in the action, but if we're going to put in the action, let's have some sort of connection to the characters so we care about the action.
Yeah, it was not some, I'm not suggesting that this Star Trek Beyond was some like brilliantly written movie about ethics or anything. It was just like, fuck it, boil everything down. I'm surprised they didn't bring up Prime Directive more, which would have added stuff to it. It was more like what the Federation is and what it represents. Teamwork.
Yeah.
All the different alien species working together, the harmony of a unit.
I know why you're here. Why we are all here.
Our captain will come for us. Mercy will be the last thing on his mind.
I am counting on it.
Fear of death is illogical. Fear of death is what keeps us alive.
So, Mike, would you recommend Star Trek Beyond?
Absolutely. It was one of the more enjoyable films I've seen in recent, I want to say years.
Oh my God.
I mean, I thought it was great. As far as like, kind of unthawing my cynicism in terms of Star Trek. Like I said, shocked it back to life a little bit. When we saw that first trailer and we saw from the director,
that trailer was,
Furious, like, oh no, they're riding around on motorcycles. Oh God, I was not expecting to actually like this film. I mean, I had one eye open because Simon Pegg was screenwriting, but I was like, yeah. And none of the actual Star Trek feature films are really that great, to be honest. I mean, they're...
Motion picture and Wrath of Khan.
Motion picture...
And Star Trek V, of course.
Star Trek 6 is good.
I like all the original cast movies except for 5.
2 and 3 are like adventure films.
Yeah.
They're really not very heady.
Yeah.
Star Trek 1 is. Star Trek 1's a great concept. And Star Trek 6, I really like Star Trek 6. The Next Gen films, I mean...
I don't know if you've ever expressed your opinions on the Next Gen films
Not
before.
really.
Maybe someday you should make some sort of video essay explaining those movies.
They're a bunch of shite. Definitely go see it. It's a movie anybody can enjoy.
But that's why I would recommend it. As someone who's not a big Star Trek fan and did not like the first 2 Star Trek movies, I thought this was fun. I feel like this has been a pretty shit summer for movies when you think of the big like popcorn movies, except for Civil War. This is the only other one that I can think of that felt like a fun popcorn movie that actually holds together. Where you're not just like, I like the action, I guess. I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed all the characters in it and the way they interacted. That's what held it all together for me. That is the one weak point I'll say, is the villain was a little bleh, but it's elevated by everything else.
Right. A little more work on that villain and his motivation.
Well, maybe they'll improve it on the next movie and they'll have the villain want to get revenge.
Oh.
Maybe they'll take it in a different route and have a villain that wants to get revenge.
But well, that's what they did, Jay.
Oh, I mean the opposite of that.
A villain who wants to be friends? Who wants to make new friends?
Sure, why not?
Oh no, a villain who had a beef with someone earlier but wants to patch things up.
There you go. That would be an inverse of everything.
I'm going to make you my friend again. At whatever the cost. And I have this giant doomsday friendship device.
The giant hug machine?
Turn your planet into a paradise. Solve all of your worldly problems like hunger and disease. Then we will be friends.
Fire at will! Do it! Do it!
Pardon me.
He likes that scene. Well, now that we're done talking about the movie I've already forgotten, I guess we should get back to work.
Yeah, now that they've stopped making VCRs, our phone will be ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
So let's just wait for that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Any second now, I'm sure.
Don't knock it over or anything when I pick up the phone.
Oh, sure.
What are you reading?
That's the making of Jurassic Park.
Oh.
I didn't even know we had this.
Oh. Let's take a look here. Is it embarrassing that I know his name is Galron?
Yes.
I thought so. Chief. Computer access. Computer access. Science lab. Go to the science lab. Oh, a little tricorder prop. It hinges, but it doesn't bend. I'm gonna make it bend. It definitely is breast cancer. That's really great. Oh, clean iron ceremonial dagger spinner. Computer access. Klingon symbol. Oh. It's like the price is right. Chief. There's the tape. An episode, a Klingon challenge. Seems like it could be these tricorders. That's nice. That's very nice. Oh my God, the phone's ringing. Lightning fast VCR repair. This is Mike. How can I help you? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. It was a wrong number.